How well do you think the government have managed the message to businesses in the wake of coronavirus?
I think it's been confusing for businesses. I think there's confusion around the different structures that people in my industry use for their business. So, are you a sole trader? Are you an employed communications professional? Are you operating as I am, as a limited company with where I'm the sole director? Which, interestingly, the kind of the move to delay IR35 kicking in for private sector businesses has been welcomed. Um, but I think it's been really confusing for businesses. And today, the big concern is around people who run their business as a limited company. And for example, I was talking to a friend today who was planning to potentially move from a sole trader to a limited company. And my advice to her was, actually, the most important thing at the moment is that you're able to bill work. So what can you do where you can concentrate on literally making sure you're doing work that's chargeable and that you can bill that work? And that's the most important thing at the moment. But I'm seeing a lot of confusion. I've not been directly affected because I haven't lost so far, I keep touching wood, I haven't lost my pipeline yet. And I'm intrigued to see where this will go. But I think that there is massive concern for my sector in that kind of very small SME space of independent practitioners.
How did you personally adapt your working habits when the lockdown was finally announced?
We have a situation in my household where I co-parent my children with my ex-husband. So we've got quite, in some ways, a little bit of a complicated arrangement where we're sharing custody of our children, which is one issue. But what that means is that I feel like my capacity to work has dropped because my children have been at home in the week, and therefore I'm sort of managing their needs and attempting to support them with home learning, whilst also trying to keep my business running. And one of the key things I found is that my capacity to work has dropped. So I've been actually offering some of my work out to some associates, but as a general rule, all of us in this space are feeling quite exhausted. Mental health issues, I feel like, are going to be the next big health crisis after coronavirus. I think we're going to have issues with mental health, possibly some obesity stuff. But people's actual mental capacity to work and be productive is quite challenged right at this moment because we're still in the crisis. Generally, my business is fine because I work anywhere and I feel like I've been relatively productive. But there's this constant interruption. If you are working with children at home, that's quite challenging. But also, what that has also brought is I'm finding that everyone is very kind of culturally accepting now of the fact that you are running your business via Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams. And it's now the new normal that we have kids milling around in the background, dogs barking. I had a bit of a giggle the other day when I was doing a Zoom call with a senior academic from the University of Oxford, which is one of my main clients. And it was an unexpected Zoom call, so I wasn't particularly dressed for the occasion. And I was sitting around piles of gingerbread bunny rabbits that I'd made with my children. And that we just had a bit of a giggle about the fact that our capacity to work has shrunk. We need to be really mindful of that while we're working through this. And I think for me, my business is called Agile PR. So the focus is always going to be on what delivers value for you and how can you kind of somehow respond to change whilst looking after your mental health.
Do you think, as a result of this sort of transformation to home working, that when the coronavirus is sort of epidemic or pandemic, it returns to normal and life returns to normal, do you think we will start to see more of a blurring of the lines between um, uh, life and home life and work moving forwards?
I think we're definitely seeing this blur between, and it's a massive shift in culture between your professional self and then your home working self. And I had a call with a prospective client on Wednesday, and we had a bit of a giggle about the fact that the new work uniform is almost nice work top with leggings or pajama bottoms, and that seems to be what's currently acceptable. We are seeing the insides of people's bedrooms, the amount of the inside I've seen, people's dining rooms. We're seeing it on the news as well when they ran the first sort of virtual press conference We saw the inside of journalists' bedrooms, and so that's becoming, seeing the insides of people's homes in a work context is becoming more normal, and that's fascinating. And I think also the concept of the standard 9 till 5 is utterly blurring. And I think what I do welcome about it is the idea that we're bringing our whole selves to work now. And I've talked about this a lot. I'm absolutely fascinated by things like the 4-day working week. I've done some work before with one of the academics from Oxford University who's a specialist in happiness economics, for example. And I feel like it on the kind of vague silver lining in this entire crisis is that we're possibly able to find a more calm way of working. So, for example, the cost of travel for my business has dramatically reduced, and I'm able then to redeploy that budget towards offering work out to associates who really need it right now. So I think there's some positives to be found in this situation.
As a business owner yourself, what steps would you like to see the government take next to maybe, protect your business that little bit more moving forwards?
The government definitely needs to think about not penalising owners of small limited companies, because at the moment this seems to be the major gap. There was a major gap earlier in the week where there was no support for small business owners. There was support for employees, but not for the business owners. They've attempted to address that, but what they've currently offered still leaves this massive gap. Already, I think owners of small limited companies were feeling penalised by IR35 kicking in. For me, that was a slightly different thing because I was able to kind of negotiate that around, I've got very specific areas of specialism and highly skilled work that kind of sits my contracts outside of IR35. But it's a massive concern. I'm seeing it on my social channels, how concerned some of my colleagues are that are working in this space. And I think it's very confusing, but at the same time, I feel a certain amount of empathy, which might be rare, with the government, because at least they're making decisions every day. Things are changing every day. We're only really, I would say, 2 weeks max into this crisis. Things are changing every day, and things could continue to change. So yeah, it's really, obviously, really turbulent times. The other thing I'd like to say is more for other businesses, but we need to be really careful about the messages that we sell about selling things or celebrating certain business aspects, because I think there's a massive culture shift in terms of how we sell our services. I had an email, a LinkedIn message just this afternoon selling services, and at the moment a hard sell feels really uncomfortable and inappropriate.